let's take Uber. Great technology, but excuse the expression, an asshole running the company. And he built the company, but he almost single-handedly destroyed it. Yeah. And he was not a values-driven guy.
Welcome to the Masks Off podcast, Leadership Strategies, No Disguises. I'm Razwana Waheed, and together with my co-host Olivier Larvor, we talk to the smartest people in the world of leadership, change and psychology to give leaders real strategies to bring human back to the workplace.
If you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media. It will help us greatly.
In this episode, we speak to Howard Behar, former president of Starbucks, on the secret to employee engagement in large corporates.
You talk a lot, I think, in the book around how the values of a business and the vision of a business are essential to engage employees. Right. Can you tell us how you've seen that working well in your business?
You know, like I say, it's always about the people. We think we're in the coffee business, but we're not. We're in the people business. And, you know, that's what we do. We sell those things, but it's only people that make it happen. You have to be conscious of that all the time, because if your people are not feeling good about themselves, if they don't subscribe to the greater purpose of the organization, if they don't share common values, then it's very difficult for them to give all that they have towards accomplishing the organization's goals. And leaders' primary responsibility is to help people achieve their goals in the journey of accomplishing the organization's goals. Those two have to fit together. When they don't fit together, then there's a conflict arises, and people don't perform. They just don't attach. It's like a family. You know, it's what makes great families work is great communication, care, understanding, attachment to the family.
It's all about relations, really. The relations that you cultivate with your employee. I'm glad that you're telling that. We are just like a family, and we need to take care of each other. But at the same time, I cannot help to think what is happening today. What we all can hear today is it's all about technology. Technology, applications. That will save the day. It's not people anymore. So what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, that's not true.
Cool.
Technology is a tool.
Sure.
Right? People create the tool and use the tool. And unless it's used well and it's used morally, then what happens? It breaks down. I mean, the greatest tool has been internet, no question about it, but it has its pluses and its minuses. In the business world, in the world that I lived in, Starbucks has used technology as a tool, and it's had its pluses and minuses. We have this phone ordering, so you can basically place your order on the phone, and when you get there, the drink is ready. Well, that's added a lot of pressure inside the stores, and the people are struggling with it. So it's a great tool for our customers, but it's very difficult for our people to handle. And so it's got to do both. It can't do one. If it's only serving the customers and it ends up causing a lot of stress for the people, then it's not working. Let's take Uber. Great technology, but excuse the expression, an asshole running the company. And he built the company, but he almost single-handedly destroyed it. Yeah. And he was not a values-driven guy. Yeah. It was about him. It was about him and about making money. And so he's been relieved, at least temporarily, of his role. And look at all the people in senior management that left. These are people that left. They're left a lot of money on the table. That tells you what's more important to people. They want to feel good about themselves. They want to be treated with respect and dignity, and they weren't being treated that way at Uber. So no matter how much the money was, no matter how much the fame was, they left.
I've heard a story about you when you were young and when you stepped into your first management position. I believe one of your executive guys said, you need to change. You need to be, all this heart, all this people thing. Now you're stepping into manager role, so forget about that. So can you tell us the story?
When I was in my mid-20s, I was working for a furniture company, and I got promoted from director to vice president, which I never thought would ever happen to me because I don't have a college education. I don't have a college degree. And so I got this promotion, and, it was lots of fun, and I was excited about it. And one day the CEO of the company caught me at the elevator, and he was congratulating me. And then he said, there's some things I'd like to talk to you about. And I said, his name was Walker. And I said, yeah, Walker, what is it? He said, well, one of the things I've noticed about you, and I know you want to be a great executive. So what I've noticed about you is you always wear your heart on your sleeve. You show your emotion. He said, great executives don't do that. And the other thing he said, I've noticed that when you're in a meeting, you're always willing to share your opinion and be excited about something. And he said, great executives don't do that. They hold that back. And, it's like never let people see you sweat and never share your opinions too quickly as an executive. I remember thinking to myself, well, why did they promote me? I went through a period of time because of that I thought I tried to change. I thought, well, okay, I want to be a great executive. And it basically, I went from a guy that loved my work to a guy that hated his job, a guy that got to work early every morning to a guy that got in late every day, to a guy that enjoyed being around other people to a guy that didn't. And I really suffered depression because of it. And it took a few months. It's amazing how quickly it came. And I finally decided to leave the company because I just couldn't live with that. But I decided that's not who I wanted to be. The problem was I didn't know who I was. I was just doing my work, living my life, and young, and not thinking about who I was. So I couldn't defend myself against him when he made those comments. And so I decided I was going to learn about myself. Who was I? And I started working on myself, and I read a book that talked about you had to identify what your core values were. So what were your 8 to 10 core values? And I got a list of about 300 words that identified my 8 to 10 core values. It took me about 6 months to get it down to about those 8 to 10. It's really harder than you think. And then it said you have to define what those core values mean to you. How do they inform the actions or decisions you take in life? Because otherwise they're just a word. If I said, I'm an honest person, well, the word is just, honesty is just a word until you put it into action.
Right.
Because everybody would say they're honest, but everybody might be a little bit dishonest, or they might define it in a different way. So I had to define what the words meant to me. And then it said you have to write a personal mission statement for yourself. What is it you want to accomplish in your life? Not in terms of I want to be rich, but it was more about what you wanted to leave behind, how you wanted to affect the world in which you live. It had to be bigger than you. And so I did that. And over time, it's changed. And now my mission is every day I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. And then it talked about writing a paragraph or some sentences about how you wanted to live your life. And I did that. And I came up with what I call my 6 Ps. The first P is purpose. Everything in my life has to have a purpose greater than myself. The second P is if you have a purpose greater than yourself, then you should be passionate about it. Scream it from the highest mountaintops. Be all in. Then the third P is persistence, because everything in life worth doing takes persistence. There's lots of rocks in everybody's river. Some we put there ourselves, some are caused by others, some are just there by nature. And you have to learn to get over them, around them, or under them, or you got to figure out how to blow them up, or you have to do something else. And then the fourth P is patience. That's been difficult for me to learn because I'm kind of an type personality. My grandchildren taught me patience. Mm-hmm. And then the fifth P is performance. We don't like that word very much. Human beings don't like to be measured. We don't want to have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, how did we do today? Unless we can say good. We don't like to look in the mirror and say, hey, I screwed up today. And then the final P is people. Everything we do in life has to be about serving people. There's no job that any of us will ever hold. I don't care if you're a widget maker. I don't care if you're a lawyer, a doctor, a barista. It doesn't make any difference. It's always about serving people.
I'd like to go back to something you said at the very start, which is something we haven't actually touched on in our interview so far, and that is the fact that you had to discover who you were, and you were almost told to be a different version of yourself in order to perform a role in the business. And that, led to you leaving the business eventually because you were depressed, as you said.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've talked about this, Olivia, with anyone. We've talked about the impact on values and engagement with employees, so people that don't manage people, but we haven't talked about the impact of values, etc., on a leader in the business, or even somebody who is aspiring to become a leader. So with the conversation you had with the then executive of the business that you were in, let's say some of our listeners are in that position now where they're effectively being told to become a leader in this business, you have to be this kind of person rather than this kind of person who you are. And if that leader wants to have a discussion with their executive to explain who they are, what their beliefs are, and maybe bring that executive on board, how would you advise they do that?
Well, first of all, you have to do your own work. This isn't walk into somebody's office and say, I don't like what's going on, or I'm unhappy. You've got to be able to talk about why you're unhappy or what it is that you're uncomfortable with and have a discussion about it. And you have to be able to say to this person, this is how I want to live my life. These are my values. I want to care about people. I want to treat people with respect and dignity. I don't want to be abusive to people. These are the things that matter to me in my life. And that has to be an open discussion. You have to ask the person, do those things fit here? Can I be who I am? You know, you have to have that open discussion. And sometimes the answer may be, no, well, you just can't be that way here. And then you have to make a decision. Is this where you want to stay? I think that unless you're aligned with the organization that you're part of, it doesn't work. I mean, think about it. You get married or you have a significant other in your life, and that person shoplifts. They like to have lots of things, and so they're always stealing stuff from stores, and they bring it home. Can you live with that? Can you live with a boss that's always telling you to change a number or to yell and scream at people? Or I worked for a guy once that used to come into my office every day and tell me to fire somebody that he just didn't like. With some immediate reaction, he just got mad. He said, you got to get that person out of here. I was pretty mature at that time, and I used to tell him to get the you-know-what out of my office. And I did. And, and it worked because I had confidence in myself. If you need the job you're at, right? If you're afraid to leave your job, you're always going to trade your values for the organization's or your boss's values. And if you do that, you're going to have a very unhappy life. If you wake up in the morning, and I have this analogy, I call it wearing your hat. And I don't mean the hats that we wear that define the roles that we play, mother, father, brother, sister, or boss, or whatever. I'm talking about the hat that we wear that defines our values. You wake up in the morning, if you look across the bed from you, say, I better put on my significant other or spouse hat. You better evaluate whether you're with the right person. If you go to work and you say, well, I better put on my Starbucks hat, you better think about whether this is the right place for you. Because in order to have a productive, fulfilling life, which includes happiness and accomplishment of your goals and all the things that you want in your life, you have to be able to wear your hat. Otherwise, it just doesn't work well.
It resonates with me because this is exactly what happened to me. I wasn't living according to my values. I was fearful. The company I was working for was extremely harsh. Now they changed their culture. It was all about results, all about KPIs, all about the dashboards and making sure that we get the numbers, At the end, the people, they didn't care anymore about the people. It was about the numbers. For me, it was so hard to live, just like the others, and I knew my companies in that because you have this system. You are plugged into the system and you live inside the system and you just say, well, this is the way it is. So it takes a lot of courage, I believe, just to say, well, there's another way. I need to listen to me, to myself. But for me, it led to a burnout, really, because exactly what you described. I was misaligned.
Exactly.
I was misaligned with my values. So that's it. So really, I think this is so important what you just said, because I believe there's lots of execs in this position. They sense that there's something wrong and it's in their guts, but they just go and they do this day-to-day job without any heart or spirit. So
they get trapped.
Exactly.
And they get trapped in the things that you're talking about. I'm part of this system. That's just the way that it is. I have to suck it up. Right?
And they will say, I will say another year, or maybe 2 years, or maybe 5 years, and then I will live. They take all the excuses. And to me, this is exactly what I did. But really, what would be the best advice for them?
Number one, save money. Get yourself in a position that you're not beholden to the paycheck every month or every week. If you're beholden to that, then I understand. And let's say you got 3 children, and you got a family to support, you got kids in college. If you don't have money in the bank, if you don't have money saved so that you can say, I don't want to do this, I always tell people, you got to have 6 months to a year of savings, because then you can be in charge of your own destiny. If otherwise you're not, then I understand it's hard for people to leave. And I don't encourage anybody to just quit their job without money in the bank. That can create a whole nother set of problems. And remember, sometimes it isn't the company. Sometimes it's your boss. There are a lot of good companies that have jerks that are, in leadership positions. Sometimes you have to find your way to a boss that isn't a jerk inside the same company. Those are things that just happen. But, get in charge of your own destiny. We're not victims. We choose to be victims only if we don't do anything about it. And the number one thing is to get in charge of your own destiny by putting away financial resources so that you can be.
I think what you just said, Howard, resonates with Olivier and I both, because in the last couple of years, both of us have left our jobs. And, I didn't leave because I hated my job or I hated the business. I was in quite a luxurious position where I had a challenging role, I had a good manager, I had good money, I traveled, but I didn't feel free. And freedom is one of my biggest values. Yeah. And so I did that, saved enough so that I could leave my job and start a business, et cetera, et cetera. But I think sometimes you don't necessarily have to be completely miserable as a leader to then find something else. Sometimes it's the smallest thing that can impact you in the most dramatic way. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to leave this luxury, which it felt like luxury to me, in order to find something that is more fulfilling. And actually, I have less money now than I've had in my whole life. And I'm the happiest I've ever been, which is ironic.
That's the key. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's not because you hate your job you want to leave. It may be that you want to, just what you said, you want to do something on your own. You want to have freedom. And that's why it's important to really identify what your core values are. What really matters to you? What is it you want out of your life? Because life is short. I'm 73 years old. It took me a long time to figure out all this stuff. After leading, tens of thousands of people, you start to realize what really matters in life. And, life is not perfect. No job is perfect. Just because you wake up one morning and you hate your job, it doesn't mean that you ought to quit. You need to look at it and say, what is it I dislike about it? Right. What can I change about it? And that's part of life. Be in charge of your own destiny. You don't want to live your life feeling like you're not. There's nothing worse than that.
So, Howard, this podcast is all about leadership, and you just said it, so you led tens of thousands of people. Let's say that you have a young manager or leader starting his position. What would be the best advice that you can give her or him starting this position?
Number one, I'll reemphasize, learn about yourself.
Right.
When I interview people for jobs, I don't interview for skill sets. I will eventually, but the first 2 or 3 interviews are all about who they are. What matters to them? Where are they headed in their lives? What are their goals? What are their values? One question I ask, what do your parents think about you? What's your relationship with your mom? What's your relationship with your dad? What do they like about you? What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? How about your brother? If you have a brother or sister, what would they say about you? Who's your best friend, and why is that person your best friend? I want to know who the person is as a human being.
Did you ask this question actually?
Oh yeah, all the time. That's where I started.
And the HR department didn't say anything to you because this is.
No, there's nothing illegal about asking those questions. I would ask what I call my magic wand question. This is other people have used this, but I'd say, you're fortunate today that I have my magic wand with me. Today, I'm going to wave this magic wand over your head, and tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up. You're going to make all the money you want to make. You're going to be doing the job that you would just love to do. What is that job? What is it you would be doing, and where would it be? Because I always believe people should follow their dreams. If somebody came into me and wanted to work for Starbucks and they said, what I really want to do is manage a sports team, I'd say, so why aren't you doing that? What is it that's keeping you from doing that? Why would you want to come to work for Starbucks? It was amazing how many people that they just thought that they should be working for Starbucks instead of following what their dreams are and doing the work to get where they wanted to be.
So Howard, after you asked the magic wand question, did anyone ever come back for another interview, or did they go off and just
No, they come back. A lot of people said, well, I want to work here because I think it aligns with my values. And this is what I've heard about Starbucks. And I've talked to a number of people here, and I want to be treated like a human being. And I hear that Starbucks does that. And I also know that there's lots of opportunity to grow. And primary role of a leader is to grow their people. Okay. That's it. That's our job. Number one, make better human beings, and better human beings turn into better leaders, better employees, and better employees turn into better leaders. There's a simple equation that I always try to go by, and it's this: grow your people grow the organization grows the business. If an organization isn't growing their people, teaching them new skills, making them better human beings, how to deal better with other human beings, how to be a citizen of the world, how to contribute to the world in which we live, then we're not doing our job. We're not doing our job.
I hear you very well, and I'm just behind you. You should lead the revolution. I will just be a follower. Me and Raz will follow you with that, with a flag. But at the same time, I know also that this environment starts to be very, very harsh. Very harsh with people. They have been asked to work a lot and put a lot of efforts. It seems that it's never enough. I believe every company, even the toughest one, they will tell you, we are people company. We believe in our people, but they will do the opposite. They will ask everything. So how can
their actions don't match their words?
So how can we change that? How can we change this culture of competition, of bottom line?
First of all, bottom lines matter.
Of course it works.
Performance matters. Yeah. If you get married and you have a spouse and your job is to take out the garbage and you don't take out the garbage, somebody's going to say something. So performance matters.
Sure.
So, you don't get to do all these things unless you achieve results. The question is how do you get performance? Yeah. And I believe you get performance by treating people well, not the other way around. And there's examples of this all around. I'm going to give you one from my hometown, Microsoft. So Microsoft is a successful company. But Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer were yeller screamers. They were abusive to their people. Did they build a successful company economically? Yeah. But what happened when things got tough? Their people left. All the top level people left because they didn't want to live like that. And then all of a sudden what happened? Business started to go down, and for 15 years they were static. Didn't do anything. Their stock didn't go anyplace. People didn't believe in Microsoft. The people that work there didn't believe in it. And so what happens? The new guy comes in, and what does he do? He just changes the culture. He said, we're going to treat each other with respect and dignity. There's going to be no yelling and screaming about a bad idea. We're not going to put people down. And what happens? That was basically all he did. I mean, he had some other ideas, but that basically all he did was change how Microsoft leadership treated its people. And now look at Microsoft. They're back going again. Look at the difference between, it's Uber. I mean, we talked with that example. People leave and nobody cares. They don't want to be there. Where they treat their people well, they're willing to let people try new things. It's what works. Any leader that thinks it's the opposite of that is not thinking straight. Any people that think they have to create fear in their organization in order to get performance, they're not thinking straight. That's what Microsoft had. That's what Uber had. And one company after another has done that. But you can look around the world and find companies that are a lot of companies that are the opposite of that. Choose the companies that align with your values and make sure that you do your work. Make sure you talk to people that work there. If I was out looking for a job today, I would identify the top 10 companies, industry that I want to be part of. I would start to look and say, what do they write down that their values are? Let's say they say that people are our most important asset. As soon as I hear that, I know that there's something wrong because people aren't assets. Okay? People are human beings. Assets are computers, trucks, and buildings. Assets always give you what you expect. People never do. People always give you more or less. It's never static, right? Just like in human relationships. That's what relationships are about. I've been married for 40 years. My wife never gives me what I expect. I'm always amazed what comes out of her mouth, and after 40 years. So that's the way life is, and that's the way it is in an organization. If you want robots, then get robots. But people make the world go round. So, identify what your values are, what the company says its values are, then start talking to people that work in the company. The first question I would ask, what happens when you do something wrong at XYZ company? What happens when you make a mistake at Starbucks? Do you get yelled at,
Right.
screamed at? Do they get fired? Do you get put on probation? What happens when you make a mistake at Starbucks? What happens if you do something right at Starbucks? What are the things that they say they do, and what are the things that they actually do? What's the gap between what they say and what they do? There's always a gap in every organization. Find out what that gap is. And can you live with those things? Because there's trade-offs we make on everything. There are no perfect people. There are no perfect organizations. We're going to make trade-offs. That's what you got to do. You got to do your work.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Once again, if you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media. Merci.